beast, human, and saint. Today, we will talk about the topic of the beast, the human, and the saint. When we consider these three, we are examining them through the lens of karma and virtue. There are three classes of beings. The beast is the level below us, the human is the intermediate stage where we are, and the saint refers to the noble beings whom we revere. We will compare these three classes so that we know what we must do to avoid the path of the beast and instead walk the path of the saint. We will use a few criteria to see clearly the difference between the beast, the human, and the saint, and to see the imminent danger that awaits us, how easily we can fall and be reborn as a beast. It is a very real danger. Now, let us compare a few aspects. The beast lives primarily by instinct. A beast's instinct is like a program pre-installed in its brain, and the beast simply lives according to it. We cannot reason with it. It's a program set in its way. For example, consider fish like salmon or sardines. They are born in a river. When they hatch, they journey to the sea. They swim freely, living their lives to the fullest in the ocean, until one day, a secret call from deep within their subconscious, a call they aren't even aware of, guides them to seek out the very river where they were born. And they swim upstream, struggling all the way back to that source. There, they lay their eggs, they reproduce, and then they die. And no one understands why. No matter how far they travel, at a certain moment, a secret, urging instinct makes them return to that exact place to find the source where they once lived. Take a dog, for instance. It has a program installed in its head. It must be loyal. For what karmic reason, we don't know, but it is bound by this program of loyalty. And whoever raises it, once it accepts them as its master, it remains utterly loyal and follows that person, no matter what kind of bizarre life that person leads. There is a story of a dog that was very fierce but loyal only to its master. This master felt no real love for it. He kept it only to help guard his sheep. But the dog would live and die for him. And when the master abandoned it, the dog traveled thousands of kilometers just to find him. A man who was a scoundrel, a vagrant, a drunkard, with nothing special about him. But because the dog was programmed to be loyal, it just followed its instinct of loyalty. Or monkeys, they have a program where if they see someone do something, they imitate it. It's like an instinct. We might think this is like an intelligent person who is curious and imitative. And that is a trait, but a monkey's imitation is so excessive it truly becomes a kind of program pre-installed in its head. Or think of bees. When they gather nectar to build their hive, it is entirely a program that has been installed in their minds. And that is what we call a beast's instinct. Of course, there are exceptional cases of strangely intelligent animals that we cannot explain. But that's a different matter. Normally, a beast operates on a pre-installed program. And this pre-installed program is the result of its karma from many past lives. For example, a tiger is strong, agile, fierce, and cunning. The cause of this is that in a past life, it embodied those qualities. It carried the nature of a vicious, predatory beast within its mind. And because it still had some merit left, it fell into the life of a powerful beast that everyone fears. Or consider a snake. It has no arms, no legs. Its body is long and slithering, with only a head, fangs, and venom. Before it even bites us, the mere sight of it moving makes us scream in fear. Why is that? It is because in a past life, this being always wanted people to fear them. They would threaten and yell at everyone, thinking that life was about the strong dominating the weak. They thought if they could make people fear them, they would be powerful. A simple thought. They never knew that this very thought, I want to make people fear me, would, in a future life, cause them to be reborn as a creature that people fear on sight. That is the snake. It all comes from the intention. Or a dog. A dog's loyalty comes from many karmic causes. For example, a person might have done something wrong that destined them to be reborn as a beast. But they possessed the virtue of loyalty. Therefore, they were reborn as a dog, simultaneously repaying the karmic debt of being an animal while retaining the virtue of loyalty, so that one day they could rise again and become a good person. Or a horse. Once a horse is tamed, the thing it enjoys most is having someone on its back, riding it. A wild horse will not allow this. But for a horse that has been tamed, being ridden by a person is a source of strange pleasure. Why would having a heavy person on your back be a pleasure? It's because this is a debt from the past. In a past life, this person owed someone a debt but didn't have the means to repay it. So they made a vow. In this life, I cannot repay you. I vow that, in a future life, I will serve you as a horse or a buffalo. Just one sentence. They said just one sentence and it came true. In the next life, they were indeed born as a horse, a very good, intelligent horse, loyal to a single master. And every time that master jumped on its back, it felt immense joy. When no one was riding it, it felt sad. These are the instincts of a beast. And within that instinct lies its karma. Nothing happens without a reason. As for humans, we are influenced by two factors. The first is what is innate, and the second is the education we receive from our environment. What is innate? It means that when we are born, good and bad qualities are already present within us. That is why a person with deep intuition can hold a newborn baby, look at it, and know immediately what it will be like. They can sense how fierce or gentle it is, whether it will be obedient or stubborn, quiet or talkative, intelligent or not. They can even perceive its future merit and success. A person with intuition can read a newborn's personality and life path. What does this mean? It means a program has also been partially installed in the human mind. But because we are human, we have more freedom than a beast. We can start to think, to distinguish right from wrong, and to make choices in our actions and words throughout our lives. The second factor that influences us is the education from our environment. If a child is born into a good environment, where good people create positive impressions in their mind, then gradually, the negative tendencies from past lives are worn away and they fully embrace the good environment. For example, a child may have a naturally rebellious nature, but due to some positive karma, they are born into a very gentle family where everyone speaks calmly and harmoniously. Then their rebelliousness, which was at 10 parts after living in such a gentle family, suddenly decreases to only 4 parts. To the family, the child still seems disruptive, but in reality, for the child, 6 parts of that nature have been cleansed away. Something we on the outside wouldn't know. The environment has a massive influence. And why is one born into a good or bad environment? It is all connected to the karma of the past. For example, in a past life, a family was being oppressed during a land dispute. They met a local tough guy who, seeing their plight, took pity on them and stood up to defend them, winning back their land. The family was deeply grateful and grew fond of him. 10 lifetimes later, that tough guy was reborn into that very family. By now, the family was exceptionally gentle, but they gave birth to a rebellious child who was unlike anyone else. Yet, because he was one child in an entire family that was harmonious and gentle, the rebellious nature he carried from his past was washed away by 6 parts, leaving only 4. Looking at those 4 parts, we still see him as a mismatch. Why is the whole family so gentle, yet this one kid is so unruly? We don't realize that, in truth, he has already lost 6 parts of it. Or consider the reverse, a gentle person born into a fierce family. It's the same principle. Their gentleness might be 10 parts, but being born into a family that is constantly cursing and bullying one another, they might lose 6 parts of their gentleness, and 4 parts of fierceness grow in its place. And what is the reason? Perhaps in a past life, this person was indebted to that family and was born as their child to repay that debt. It's the same for us. Right now, as humans who have encountered the Buddhist teachings, we practice. We perform meritorious deeds and we refine our minds through meditation, prostrations, and chanting. Our merit accumulates, growing stronger and stronger. When we die, we can be reborn in a heavenly realm. When we arrive there, we are a human who has just ascended from the human realm. So our mind isn't yet completely pure. We might still be capable of causing trouble. But the heavenly realm is a realm of pure goodness. The beings there have lived for thousands of years. Their minds are saintly, and they can read each other's thoughts. The moment we have a thought, they look at us and know everything. So we don't dare to have bad thoughts. Therefore, after coming from a state still mixed with the messiness of the human world, after spending some time in that heavenly realm, we become pure just like the realm itself. So, as humans, we have 2 components. One is the innate character we carry from the past, and the other is the influence of our environment's education. It is because of this second factor that so many educators and so many holy sages have appeared in this world, hoping to transform it into a place of virtue and sanctity. Because without education, humanity would just get worse and worse, which is a terrifying prospect. So we are grateful to the saints who have appeared in this world to create a good environment for us to live in. For example, all of you Buddhist followers sitting here today, we know how to practice. But if each one of us were to tell the honest truth about our lives, the honest truth about our hearts, we would have to admit one thing: we have all made many mistakes. Isn't that right? Is it not true that we have made many mistakes? But today, we sit here together in this warm atmosphere of spiritual community, in this sacred festival, and we let go of all our mistakes. We just want to sit here with one heart turned towards the Buddha, thinking of nothing else. Even though the conditions for living and eating are very challenging, and tonight we will have to sleep out in the elements, under the dew and the wind. And if the person next to us has a bad habit and, while sleeping, turns and puts their leg on our head, what will we do? Will we stand up and start a fight? At another time, maybe when we're angry, we would. But living in an environment like this, our hearts naturally soften. We become patient, right? You're sleeping soundly and you suddenly feel something heavy on your head. You open your eyes and see someone's entire thigh resting on your face. But because you are in a moral environment, you are patient. You will gently lift their leg, not daring to move it too strongly for fear of waking them. You gently shift them, or you move to another spot to sleep peacefully. And when you feel not anger but compassion for them, helping them sleep, you suddenly feel happy. You feel a sense of joy, and you see that it's true. In a moral environment where people love each other without hatred, life is truly peaceful, truly happy. And it's true because this environment cultivates our souls. We mature in the Dharma like this. Because if it weren't for this environment, say if you were on a crowded train, right? Everyone is scowling, afraid of being robbed. If you opened your eyes to find someone's leg on your face, what would you do? You'd start a fight immediately. But in a spiritual environment, it's different. We can be patient. We can endure. Because we are enveloped by morality, protected by the Buddha's halo, we can practice right away. This is how we see the benefit of the environment. And it is thanks to the Buddha's teachings that we have stopped ourselves from doing so many wrong things, allowing us to be here today, living in this atmosphere of practice. And this gives us a promise that after we die, we will not be reborn in a place of suffering. Even if it is not a realm of supreme bliss, we will surely be reborn in a place that is decent, comfortable, and fulfilling. This is all thanks to the many months and days we have spent trying to practice. This is why we are so grateful for the education of the Buddhas, the saints, the patriarchs, and all the venerable monks and nuns. And understanding this, we see we have another duty. We must create a moral environment for our children and grandchildren, right? We live in an environment like this today because it was created by the venerable teachers and our spiritual friends. We are bathed in this halo, but we must promise that when we go home to our villages and our communities, we too will create such an environment, so that the children there, even the neighbors' children, we will love them as our own. Because we know the path now. We have vowed to love all sentient beings. So we love our neighbors' children as our own, and we hope that our community will be truly peaceful, happy, and moral. Therefore, we will strive to be a good example, to do something so that our community becomes moral, so that the children there can grow up bathed in that halo of morality and become good people. Can we agree to this? Can we do it? Please try to do this. The merit is immense. To be good ourselves is one thing, but to create a good environment for children to grow up in, that merit is truly vast. It's immense, because that environment helps them overcome the other half of their nature. So, we've said the beast is instinct, the human is half instinct and half education. What about the saint? When we call someone a saint, it means that being possesses the wisdom to completely control their own mind, free from the sway of natural instinct. For example, when a thought arises, a saint knows immediately if it is good or bad. However, there are many levels of saints. In Buddhism, there are 4 main levels, starting from the first fruit, the stream enterer, Sotapanna, then the second, third, and fourth, which is the arahant. Buddhas and bodhisattvas are beyond even these. But among those 4 levels, the initial stage, the stream enterer, faces the biggest struggle. Why is it a struggle? Because this person knows good from bad, but their karmic force is still very strong. They have to fight constantly with their circumstances and with themselves. A saint who is a stream enterer practices with great difficulty, but they are truly great and endearing. They may not yet have the high supernormal powers we imagine, but they are people who are always oriented towards the good, towards practice, enlightenment, and liberation. In contrast, a person who has not yet reached this stage might sway this way today and that way tomorrow. If they meet a bad person, they follow a bad path. If they meet a good person, they follow a good path. But a stream enterer, having reached that stage, even in the worst circumstances, will still find a way to turn towards what is good and right. That is the difference. So a saint, by definition, has a pure mind and a very high ability to control themselves, so they do not do wrong, so they are not commanded by instinct. Let's summarize: the beast is instinct, driven by karma. The human is half instinct and half education. And the saint is one who has the wisdom to control their own mind, seeing right and wrong with clarity. That is the first criterion for distinguishing these three classes: beast, human, and saint. The second criterion is enjoyment, the pursuit of pleasure. For example, a beast follows its instinct. Whatever brings it pleasure, it dives right in without discrimination. It sees someone giving delicious food, it eats, except for maybe a well-trained dog. In the wild, if it sees something it can bite and tear, it does. If it desires to mate, it mates. There is no filter. Whatever leads to enjoyment, to pleasure, the beast indulges in it without limit, without reflection. But humans are different. A human has consideration, a sense of order, morality, responsibility, and an awareness of circumstances, of merit and demerit. We don't just indulge in everything we encounter. For example, if we place food on a table, a beast would just leap on it and gobble it down. But a human doesn't. A human arranges the food and then considers how many people will be eating. Who will eat more? Who will eat less? Who is older? Who is younger? Have I eaten enough? Should a portion be saved for someone else? There is consideration in the mind. That is how humans are with enjoyment. This also applies to romance and sensual desire. The world of beasts is chaotic. They mate promiscuously. There are a few exceptions, species with a programmed instinct for fidelity where a male and female pair for life. But this is due to a specific karma that installed that instinct. The vast majority of beast species are promiscuous. There are no distinctions. If they want to mate, they mate. Scientists have even confirmed this with DNA tests on the offspring of seemingly monogamous apes and monkeys. They find that the young in a single litter often come from different fathers. This means that even though a female is paired with one male, she is mated with others. There are no boundaries, no order. But humans are not like that. Humans have laws, morality, and social bonds that compel us to consider and calculate before we pursue any pleasure. We are not permitted to simply follow the whims of our instincts. That is the difference between human and beast. And the saint? The saint does not indulge in enjoyment at all. This is the key difference. So, based on this single criterion of enjoyment, we can tell if a person is heading towards the path of the beast or heading towards the path of the saint, because they are currently human. So if we see a human who loves to indulge in pleasure, we know this person is heading towards the path of the beast. This is true even if they have great merit. For instance, if they have a lot of money and can party and have anything they want. Because they have so much money and can get anything they desire, they completely satisfy their craving for enjoyment. And we know immediately this person is heading towards the path of the beast, sowing the karmic seeds to become one. Why? Because it is the beast that indulges without limit. But if they know how to think, to distinguish what should and should not be enjoyed, we know this person can still be reborn as a human. And if that person has no interest in enjoyment and only loves to practice, we know this person is heading towards the path of the saint. Heading towards the path of the saint. We can know just by looking at their relationship with enjoyment. So between the human, the beast, and the saint, the difference is this. What the human sees as happiness, what the beast sees as pleasure, the saint sees as bondage and darkness. It's a very strange difference. A very strange difference. Just by looking at this one point, we know if a person has the wisdom for practice or not. If we present a fun distraction to test them and they dive right in, if we invite them to go out and they go immediately, we know right away. This person's desire for enjoyment is too strong. They are heading towards the path of the beast. But if we invite them out and they first consider their responsibilities, whether they have asked for permission and only then decide to go, we know this person is still a human because they think before they enjoy. And if we invite them out and they refuse immediately, saying, "No, I am going to the temple for the Enlightenment ceremony," we know right away this person is heading towards the path of the saint. Heading towards the path of the saint. And looking around today, it seems quite a few are heading for sainthood. Quite a few. So, just by using the criterion of enjoyment versus non-enjoyment, we can identify the three classes: beast, human, and saint. And for those of us sitting here, our direction is pretty well assured. Pretty well assured. Now, regarding gentleness versus fierceness, we can divide beasts into two types: fierce beasts and gentle beasts. A gentle beast, like a cow, just eats grass. A rabbit just eats vegetables. A bird eats small insects. They are gentle. A fierce beast, however, will climb a tree, pounce on its prey, and tear it apart. When we watch documentaries and see a lion, tiger, or leopard chasing its prey, we feel pity. A gentle deer is eating grass, and suddenly a tiger stalks it, chases it down, sinks its teeth into its shoulder, and pulls it to the ground. Seeing it, we feel such sorrow. But the fierce beast is driven by its instinct, by that program installed in its brain. There is nothing to be done. The gentle beast, on the other hand, has the karma to be an animal, but because it sowed seeds of gentleness, it doesn't harm others. When its karma is exhausted, it can be reborn as a human. As for humans, we have both fierceness and gentleness within us. Some people are incredibly fierce, capable of violence, of murder, of plotting against and deceiving others. But there are also incredibly kind-hearted people who only ever want to love, serve, and help. So, unlike the animal world where a beast is either fierce or gentle, within each of us humans there's both a gentle part and a fierce part. We might seem gentle, but at any moment, we could transform into a fierce person. And this is precisely how so many people are fooled when choosing a partner. A man sees a graceful woman, pursues her, and they get married. 10 years later, she has revealed herself to be a demon. He's left wondering, she seemed so gentle back then, why is she so fierce now? Well, it's because I was gentle back then that I was able to trick you. Or a woman sees a man who seems decent, brave, and responsible. A few years after they marry, he changes into a dissolute playboy. You just can't judge. In a human being, change is easy. It is easy to change from good to bad, but very difficult to change from bad to good. Because of this, humans have a greater tendency to fall and be reborn as beasts than to develop and attain sainthood. We've all heard the saying, mountains and rivers are easier to change than a person's nature. This is usually taken to mean that a bad person is hard to change. But the truth is, a bad nature is hard to change for the better, while a good nature is very easy to change for the worse. This very fact creates so much tragedy in marriage and family life. At the beginning of a marriage, people are often good. But in the years they spend struggling to make a living, without any spiritual practice or exposure to the Dharma, the good gradually turns into bad. They become a bad person, creating tragedies in the later years of their marriage. It's truly sad. If we are lucky enough to encounter the Dharma early and know how to cultivate ourselves, then our goodness can be developed continuously. This brings us to our next point. The beast follows its instinct. The human can be gentle or fierce if they don't practice. But a saint is described as purely good. Only one who is purely good can be called a saint. In the 4 stages of meditative absorption, or jhana, the scriptures clearly state that to enter the very first stage, one must be free from all unwholesome states. This means the mind must be completely pure of evil and negativity. One must be purely good to attain even the first level of deep meditation. We can see how difficult this is. A person who can enter these states is truly great. It is not easy. Let's distinguish further. A community of beasts has no laws, only the rules of instinct. For example, a mother leopard will hunt for her cub and share the prey. She loves her cub dearly and may even teach it to hunt. But one day, the mother returns and sees her cub eating prey it has caught all by itself. At that moment, the mother roars and aggressively drives her cub away. The cub can now fend for itself. It is no longer her child. She growls and bellows until the cub drops its food and silently leaves the territory forever to live its own life. The bond between mother and child is severed. There are no laws, only the dictates of instinct. Human society, however, has laws. We have both our inner morality, which guides us to not do wrong, and we have external laws that prohibit us from doing wrong. I was recently invited to a university in Hanoi to give a talk on ethics, and I told the students this: when people lack morality, society is forced to create laws. If people have morality, they don't need laws. For instance, if I have to make a rule that says, when eating, do not take more than your share, Why is that? It's because someone was taking too much food and wasting it while others had none. Because one person was greedy, a rule had to be made. Or if a sign says, "Please take your shoes with you. Do not leave them outside," why must that rule exist? Because someone is willing to steal the shoes you leave behind. It is precisely because people violate the unspoken trust that laws must be written. Look at Western countries today. They have laws forbidding parents from hitting their children. For thousands of years, it was considered normal for parents to use corporal punishment to teach their children. Why was a law needed to limit this parental right? Because some people beat their children to death. Beat them until they were unconscious or had brain damage. Because a few people committed this terrible wrong. The state was forced to create a law for everyone. So we see the less moral people become, the thicker the law books get. It's like this in the old days. A farmer could run over to a neighbor and say, "Sister, can you lend me 100,000 dong? I'll pay you back soon." She would just pull out the money and give it to him. No paper, no contracts. But what about now? Now, if you want to borrow money, you say, "Let's meet at the notary's office this afternoon." You need notarized documents, ID cards, proof of residence, a repayment schedule, everything in writing. Why? Because someone borrowed money and then later claimed, "I never borrowed anything." It is because people break their promises and default on debts that we now have this web of binding laws. In human society, there were few laws in the beginning because people were more moral. But over time, the legal system has become more and more complex, more tangled, because people violate morality so much. So they just keep adding law after law. It has gotten to the point that in some Western countries, if you see an accident victim on the street, you don't dare help them. Because if you do, they might wake up and accuse you of causing the accident and you could end up in jail. You want to help, but you end up as the victim. So you are advised not to touch the person, only to call the police and an ambulance. But in the time it takes for them to arrive, the person could die. You could have saved their life, but if you do and they wake up and blame you, your life is also ruined. It is because people do truly wrong things that our laws have become so tangled and restrictive. So, the society of beasts has no laws, only the rule of instinct. Human society has both morality and laws. But the society of the heavens has no laws either. It returns to having only morality. The celestial beings, they're no right from wrong. And they choose the right way on their own. It was like this in the Buddha's time. For the first 13 years of his teaching, many people attained enlightenment, yet there was not a single precept. Not one. Today, we hear that a Buddhist monk has to keep 250 precepts, and we think that's so many. It must be so difficult. But if we investigate, we find out that each rule was created only after someone committed a violation. For example, consider the precept against sexual misconduct. In the early Sangha, there was no such rule because no one committed that act. But then a situation arose. A monk's wife came to him crying, "The family insists that we need an heir for our fortune. And you've left to become a monk. You must come home and have a child, then you can return to your practice." He was persuaded and went home. After a child was born, he returned to the monastery. But the story got out and people started whispering. It was reported to the Buddha, "Venerable One, that monk ordained without a child, but now his wife has given birth and he has returned." So what did the Buddha do? He established a rule. From this point on, ordained monks may not engage in sexual misconduct. Someone violated the trust, and so a precept was born. It's like when people ask me, "Venerable, why do monks smoke?" The Buddha's precepts don't forbid it. Well, did they have cigarettes in ancient times? Of course not, so there was no ban. When human morality declines, laws increase. But in the society of celestial beings, there are no laws, only morality. So, based on this factor of precepts, morality, and law, we can also understand the nature of each realm. Looking at all these factors, we can draw a conclusion. Anyone who still pursues enjoyment is drifting back and forth between the human realm and the beast realm, because both humans and beasts are defined by their pursuit of pleasure, of sensual gratification. They just go back and forth, human to beast, beast to human. As long as you are chasing enjoyment, you know you are stuck in that cycle with no way out. But anyone who begins to renounce enjoyment, you know they are aiming for the path to become a saint. Perhaps they are not a saint yet, but when their heart has turned towards letting go of all worldly pleasures, when they no longer seek fun, excitement, and sensual gratification, You know this person is aiming for the path to become a saint. You can know just by looking at that. And by looking into your own heart, you know which path you are on. So, among all of us sitting here, let's look at ourselves. If we see that we still love fun, that we still like to enjoy ourselves, know that we are standing on the line between human and beast, destined to go back and forth. But if your heart loves purity and finds no taste in the sensual pleasures of the world, know that you are walking the path to becoming a saint. So, who here wishes to renounce all sensual pleasures? Raise your hand for me to see. A few people raised their hands. Are you sure? Once you raise your hand, you've made a promise. If you can't follow through, you'll be in for it. Well, I greatly praise those who dare to raise their hands. Whether you can do it or not, I don't know. But just daring to raise your hand is commendable, because it shows you are aware that worldly pleasures are temporary, impermanent, a form of bondage and suffering. They look like happiness and bliss, but their true nature is suffering. To see that and to always want to let go of it, that person is clearly heading towards the side of the saints. But if a person thinks, oh, life is fun, I have things to enjoy, they are in a very dangerous position. They are standing between human and beast. And when you stand there, you must know that mistakes are always waiting, ready to push you down. As long as you are in that position, you are always prone to making mistakes. And a mistake can cause you to fall at any moment. Today you might curse someone, tomorrow you might be greedy for their things. And just like that, you can fall into a much lower state with no way out. So as long as you are still attached to enjoyment and fun, know that you are standing in the territory that ranges from human down to beast, just bouncing up and down within it. But when you can see the fun of this world as temporary and meaningless, know that you are breaking free from that path of human and beast and are moving towards the side of the saints. That is truly praiseworthy. But to understand this is not easy at all. Take a young person just reaching the age of romance and marriage. If you tell them, don't fall in love, my child, just focus on your practice, they will be bewildered. They won't understand. Why? Because they see love and marriage as happiness. Everyone is supposed to settle down. But then someone tells them, no, that kind of love is temporary, it's a bond, it is suffering and insecurity. True happiness is found only when you practice. A young person hears this and cannot comprehend it. But if another person, upon reaching that same age, hears that love and marriage are bondage, suffering, and darkness, and they believe it immediately, accept it, and wish to practice, then we know that person has a very large seed of sainthood within them. It is not easy to be like that. Not easy at all. Then there are people who live a full married life. And only when they are old do they look back and see how exhausting it all was. That's a different path. In their next life, they'll be reborn, turn 18, and want to fall in love all over again. The cycle just repeats. So, by looking at whether we are drawn to enjoyment or not, we know which way we are heading. Towards the beast or towards the saint. It's that simple. As long as we are in a human body, nothing is certain. Why? Because the human state is a place of hesitation, of inner conflict, of mixture. Within every human, we have a part that is beast and a part that is saint. The beast part in us wants to indulge, to be fierce, to possess. The saintly part in us believes in the Dharma, loves others, and wants to help. Sometimes it even feels a weariness for worldly pleasures. So our heart is a battleground between the beast and the saint. The human position is completely unstable because it is a mixture, a conflict. Understanding this, we shouldn't want to remain in the position of a human for long. Don't be a human again and again. What should we do? We must aim higher. Aim to become what? We must aim to become a saint. Don't be a human forever. Because to be human is to suffer, to hesitate, to be insecure, with the constant risk of falling back into a beast at any moment. Many good people end up being reborn as beasts. When we see an animal, we should feel compassion because we know it was recently a human. Why did it fall? Because it made one mistake in a moment when it lost control. We are the same. In any moment we lose control and make a mistake, we too can fall and be reborn as a beast. So we must always aim for the goal of becoming a saint. But it is very, very difficult. As we said, the saints are high above, the beasts are far below, and we are in the middle. Because we are in the middle, falling down is incredibly fast, but climbing up is incredibly hard. That is why for every 10 people in this world, 8 or 9 will fall down to become beasts. Only 1 or 2 will manage to climb up to become saints. So while we are human, we must know that 80 or 90% of our potential is pulling us down towards the beast. while only 10 or 20% is striving to climb up towards the saint. Therefore, we must try with all our might to make our entire being one that is climbing up to become a saint, and not allow even a small part of us to fall down and become a beast. It must be like that. We have to know the path is very difficult. Very difficult. Sometimes I think about it. Here at our pagoda, in the middle of the mountains and forests, we lack modern comforts. So many of you come for the ceremonies, but there's no proper place to sleep. At home, you have your own room, a mattress, a blanket, a private bathroom. Here, there's none of that. The bathrooms are communal. A simple tarp serves as a roof. You're constantly bumping into people. The food might not be to your taste, and yet when the day of the ceremony arrives, you come. You come to see each other, to live in this spiritual atmosphere. This shows it's true. There is a part of you that is trying to climb up, right? You are trying to climb. But if you think, I went to the ceremony last year. It was nice, but so tiring. And when someone invites you again, you say, sleeping in the forest? No thanks. I'd rather stay home and watch some entertainment. Then, in that moment, you have just slipped back down. Slipping down is easy. Climbing up is hard. Climbing up is hard. So we must be careful. Be careful. The person who endures hardship to come here, to sleep on the ground under the stars. They are returning to the truth. They are climbing up. Slowly climbing. I'm not saying this to convince you all to come to more ceremonies. I'm just praising you. When so many come, it becomes very difficult for everyone. But I want you to know that you are making an effort just by being here. You cannot come without making an effort. I've seen so many elderly people taking one shaky step at a time who still make the effort to come to the temple for a ceremony. It's truly precious. I remember the story of one old woman. It stunned me. She prayed that she could attend one last ceremony at our pagoda and then she would be content to die. She was very weak and her family had to support her to get here for, I believe it was our Ulambana festival. After the ceremony, they helped her onto the cable car to leave. She sat down in the car, and on that ride up the mountain, she passed away. Right there. Her family just kept quiet and let the driver take them home before holding the funeral. Her vow came true exactly as she had wished. And with a mind like that, we know she was reborn in a good place. Old and weak, yet still making that one last effort. But when we are young and healthy, we don't have to come to this specific pagoda to be climbing up to become a saint. Climbing up means fighting the negativity in our own hearts. It means trying to renounce pleasure, trying to renounce selfishness, greed, hatred, and anger. When we are always trying to love others and help others, that is climbing up. Climbing up is always hard. Falling down is a whoosh, it's instant. The path of indulgence and pleasure is an easy fall. We must understand this and make the effort. That is why becoming a saint is so arduous, so difficult. These are the characteristics of a saint that we must try to emulate. First, purity and non-indulgence. As long as we are still indulging in pleasures, we are still in the position of a human. So we must practice directing our minds away from indulgence. Try to live a pure life like the true practitioners, the monks and nuns. Even though we are lay people and the Buddha doesn't forbid us all enjoyment, we should still try to live a life of purity and practice, following their example. Can we do this? Audience applause. Applause is easy, but doing it is hard. A second characteristic of a saint is non-cruelty. What is a cruel person? A cruel person is someone who enjoys making others suffer. When others are in pain, they are indifferent or even pleased. That person is cruel. But a saint feels remorse even for saying a single word that makes someone sad, let alone plotting to harm them in any significant way. That simply doesn't happen. So, a key characteristic of a saint is non-cruelty. They never wish to cause suffering to any being. That is the second characteristic. We must pay close attention to this point in ourselves. If we can see another's suffering and remain unmoved, if we feel a thrill when we scold someone, if we feel pleasure after spreading rumors that cause someone immense unjust pain, then we must know we are not a saint. What are we? We are a devil's messenger. A devil's messenger. A third characteristic of a saint is a vast, compassionate heart. This means they see everyone and feel love for them. They see everyone and feel love. For example, in a crowded environment like this today, people are constantly bumping into each other. To get to the bathroom, you have to squeeze past countless people. In this situation, you can discover if you are becoming a saint or a beast. If, in the midst of this bumping and squeezing, you constantly feel annoyed, know that you are heading towards the path of the beast. But if you bump into this person and you feel love, you bump into that person and you feel joy. Know that you are preparing to become a saint. Because a saint is one who, wherever they touch, there's love. Wherever you touch, there's love. So, you can check yourself from this morning until tomorrow. Wherever you touch, what do you feel? If it's wherever you touch, there is hatred, then be careful. In a future life, I can't guarantee what your physical form will be, but if it's wherever you touch, there is love, I guarantee you will be reborn in a heavenly realm. I am not lying. I am telling you the truth. I guarantee it. Wherever you touch, there is love. This is true here, and it's true when you go home to your family, your community, your workplace. If you can live so that wherever you touch, there is love and you are not reborn in heaven, then you can come find me and complain. I mean it. Truly. Another characteristic of a saint is being helpful. What does this mean? It can be big things like creating jobs for people, helping to rebuild a home, or giving money and food. But it can also be very small things. A person walking ahead of you trips and their sandal flies off. They are perfectly capable of getting it themselves. But because your nature is to be helpful, you walking just a step behind, pause, bend down, pick up the sandal for them, and place it at their feet before continuing on your way. Even though they could have done it themselves, because your nature is to help, you help immediately with any small thing within your power. That person is on the path to becoming a saint. A person who has this habit of helping, from the smallest things. If they were to have millions of dollars in their hands, they would only want to give it away for meritorious deeds. They wouldn't want to spend it or indulge. Because the substance of a saint within them has no taste for indulgence. For a person with the substance of a saint, the more money they have, the more joy they find in doing good works. But the person who holds a pile of money and only wants to indulge, we know immediately that person will become a beast. So the tendency to be helpful is the tendency of a saint. Right now, most of us here may not have much money. I imagine there are few wealthy people here. The wealthy often don't want to endure roughing it in the mountains like this. But for anyone who is wealthy and still comes here, I bow in admiration. Most of us are not rich. But even without wealth, we can help each other in small ways. Say you're holding your box of food, about to eat. You glance over and see someone looking at you, swallowing with hunger. You know they are hungrier than you and the servers haven't reached them yet. You immediately say, here, you eat first, I'm still full, and you wait for the next round. Or you run to find some food for them. Just from a single glance, you sense their hunger is greater than yours, and you offer your food first. A person with this tendency to help others could very well be reborn as a saint in the heavens, because it is their nature in matters big and small to help. How many of us here are like that? If I ask, no one will dare to raise their hand. But I believe that the people sitting here have a great deal of this tendency. The only thing I worry about is the wherever you touch, you get annoyed part. That still exists. So please remember for me, wherever you touch, there is love. As for helping each other with little things during a festival like this, I believe many of you can do that, right? A characteristic of a saint is to be without selfishness or envy. When they see someone who is better than them, they feel joyful. An ordinary person feels annoyed when they see someone better than them. I have some dogs at the temple and they are exhausting. The one that always follows me around, if it sees another dog approach me, it barks and chases it away. So pathetic. With that attitude, you'll just be a dog forever. With that habit, you'll be a dog for a long, long time. But for us, as humans, that tendency might still be in our hearts, to feel annoyed when we see someone better than us. So, we should know we are on the same level as that dog. But if we see someone better than us and we feel happy for them, we know we have risen to a different level. We are preparing to become a saint. No longer just a human. This point is very dangerous, so be careful, but it is also very important. Because in life, there will be many people inferior to us to make us feel pleased. And many people superior to us to make us feel envious. We must change that mindset. When we see those who are struggling, we must feel compassion and want to help. When we see those who are succeeding, we must feel joy. If we can do that, we are preparing to become a saint. These are the characteristics. Now, what about the merit needed to become a saint? If we want to develop these qualities and strive for sainthood, what meritorious actions must we perform? First, we must praise and revere the saints, especially the Buddha. When we know someone is a good person, we must praise them wholeheartedly so that others know their example. We must learn the stories of the saints by heart, especially the life of the Buddha, and retell them to others. We should also know the stories of the great heroes and sages of our nation's history and of humanity and tell them to our children and friends. Therefore, a person who loves to read and tell the stories of great figures, of heroes, and retells them to others, is a person who is sowing the seeds to become a saint. Sowing the seeds to become a saint. But a person who goes through life without knowing any good stories about anyone, who never tells a good story about anyone, does not have the karmic cause to become a saint. As disciples of the Buddha, we must know the story of the Buddha's life inside and out, along with the great examples of the arahants, the Zen masters, and the heroes of our nation. For example, why do we Vietnamese people honor the great General Tran Hung Dao as a saint? Because he was so brilliant. He led our army to defeat the Mongol invaders, who were a superpower in the world at that time. And even with absolute military power in his hands, which he could have used to seize the throne for his family as revenge for a past injustice, he refused. When his own sons suggested he take the throne, he threatened to execute them. He had no ambition for power, his only concern was the nation. Because he was a man of complete loyalty to his country who renounced power when he could have easily taken it and who, after his service was done, dedicated himself to meditation and practice. For all this, our people will forever venerate him as a saint. We must know these stories. We must learn them by heart to retell to others. By doing so, we sow the seeds to become a saint. Remember this. Continue to read the stories of the saints and sages to share with others. Next, we must support those who are practicing the holy life. This means the ordained monks and nuns who are on this path. We must support them. It also means lay people who, while not ordained, we can see are practicing diligently, renouncing pleasure, and performing many meritorious deeds. We must support them. By doing this, we ourselves are turning towards and sowing the seeds to become a saint. And this leads to one final point we must avoid. We must never mistakenly hate a good person. We must avoid speaking ill of a good person. There is nothing more terrifying than to take a good person and, through our own speculation, think badly of them, speak badly of them, and tell false stories about them. If we do this, we will fall into a terrible state in the future. A terrible state. So do not speak ill of someone you know to be good. Be very careful. The person who slanders bears a heavy karma, but we who listen and believe also share in that karma. We must be extremely careful. I wish everyone peace and joy. I wish all the venerable monastics great merit and progress on the path. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.